Whether we are there or not, ITSP Magazine still gets the best stories. Plenty of conferences and events spark our curiosity and allow us to start conversations with some of the world's brightest minds. In person or virtually, Sean Martin and Marco Ciappelli go on location and sit down with them at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Together, we discover what the synergy of these three elements means for the future of humanity. HITRUST continues to champion programs that safeguard sensitive information and manage information risk for global organizations across industries and throughout the third-party supply chain, collaborating with public and private sector experts in privacy, information security, and risk management to identify emerging threats and help organizations ensure they take the most effective steps to avoid them. Learn more at hightrustalliance.net.
And hello, everybody. You're very welcome to a new On Location episode here on ITSP Magazine. And I'm excited for this chat with Ryan Patrick from HITRUST. How are you, Ryan?
I am doing well. How are you, Sean?
I'm doing great. I miss you there in the greater Dallas area. And we had a good time at Collaborate. It was a good week, man. Good week.
We did. It was a fun show. It was great to connect with old colleagues and build better relationships with new colleagues like yourself, and got to talk about all sorts of fun things. Really fun cybersecurity things that everybody just is thinking about all the time. So
exactly, it's on top of mind for everybody all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
There was one topic which I'm sure we'll get into that is on everybody's mind, and that was a big part of the conversation during the week. So just for everybody's reference, HITRUST holds an annual event called Collaborate, and it brings together customers and assessors and partners and auditors and security folks and privacy folks. And the whole goal is to, you can probably say it better than me, but the whole goal is to help raise awareness about what it means to raise the posture for security and privacy in a way that we achieve compliance more effectively, and ultimately so we can do better as businesses serving our customers, which could be healthcare, health patients, or in retail or finance or in industrial control systems, wherever it is that we need to be compliant. HITRUST is there with its ecosystem and partners and the broader community to help us achieve those things. So to me, that's kind of the big picture of it all, and it didn't disappoint this year, Ryan.
Oh yeah, the feedback that I got both during the show itself and then afterwards has been a resounding positive and success. The fact that we've kind of grown, I don't want to say out of healthcare because we're still very much focused on healthcare, but we have a lot of new industries who are starting to participate in the conversation, and we're learning from each other. And I think that's the part about Collaborate that I appreciate the most, is exactly what it sounds like, the ability to collaborate and have very candid discussions. HITRUST has been doing this for 17 years, and we've learned a ton in 17 years. And that's not because we're the smartest people in the room. We're talking to the market every single day and learning from the market and learning from other industries and what's working and in some cases what's not working, and building from there. And Collaborate serves as kind of the pinnacle event for us each year, and having those conversations and being able to have those candid conversations.
Yeah, it's a culmination of stuff that you see and to your point, another opportunity to connect and understand, well, where are people thinking, where is the market headed, where is the tech headed, where are the regs headed, right? All that good stuff's coming. I'm going to take a moment here. I had the pleasure to sit down with Dan Nutkus, the CEO, and we had a good chat with a panel of some longtime, if you call them founders, but certainly early adopters and early contributors and early supporters of what HITRUST does, and the history and what the team has accomplished. And to your point, it's not just HITRUST as an organization. It's a group of folks that come together and they talk about, well, what does it mean to be secure? What does privacy mean? What are the frameworks that are built by industry and government? What are the regulations that we have to adhere to? And what are the technologies that we're facing businesses are deploying, that we're trying to use to run the business, to secure the business, and how does all that come together? It's super complex. And it was great to hear Dan and the rest of the panel kind of talk through the history of how HITRUST came to be, and to see that the community there really rooting itself in lessons learned over the years, embracing a solid foundation to take us to the next 17 years as an organization. So I don't know, what was some of your thoughts on looking back and how HITRUST has established stuff that we can reuse, but also learn from and maybe enhance moving forward?
Yeah, that was, I think, probably the most attended session of the entire show. And it was really great to get Dan's thoughts because, again, he was there in the beginning, obviously. But the other stakeholders, the other members of the community that were there in the beginning to kind of take their perspectives on where HITRUST came from and how it's gotten here. And, there were some pretty candid comments. People had said, we made mistakes. There were things that we thought were the right answer that were not the right answer. And we listened to the market, and the market told us, hey, you need to be thinking about it this way. And we've learned from there and we've made adjustments. So I think that was the biggest takeaway for me is, being honest with ourselves and saying, hey, we're trying real hard here. We're trying to make things better, or, make the ability to grow security programs and establish trust between organizations as efficiently but rigorously as possible. And sometimes we've gotten it right and other times we haven't, but that hasn't slowed us down. And I think that was the key takeaway from that session specifically for me is, if you look at the folks that were on the stage, they were talking about, hey, this is what we've learned over 17 years, and we are committed to continuing to evolve from this day forward. So HITRUST is not going to be stagnant. We are not going to just rest on our laurels to date. We're going to continue to innovate, and we're going to continue to evolve and try to tackle the problems of the future.
And you use the word continue, and I'm gonna take us to the vision for continuous insurance. And being in this industry for so long, it's not a new way of looking at things. Like moving from a point in time assessment to getting to a point where at any point in time, all the time, we know kind of what state we're in. And it's not just our own presentation or statement that this is where we are. It's a reliable proof with attestation through auditors and assurers to say, this is what we know. Here's our best foot forward. Here is a community and as an ecosystem of people running businesses. We can together collectively say, we're improving. Here's our current state. Here's the scope we're operating in. So tell me a little bit more about the vision for 2025 and this idea of continuous assurance and some of the things you spoke to at the event and some of the things you heard as well.
Yeah, it's still admittedly somewhat of a moving target. We're still trying to figure it out to a certain extent because it's not a small undertaking to do what we're talking about doing. And oh, by the way, even if we knew exactly what the right answer is, we couldn't flip that switch tomorrow because there's a lot of second and third order effects within our community and the way the assessments are done now that would probably wreak some havoc. So I think we'll see an iterative approach to getting to continuous assurance, but your comments are spot on. I mean, this is the direction really that everybody should be going in, because if you think about the threat landscape, the bad guys and gals are not stagnant. They're not resting on what worked yesterday. They're evolving. They're figuring out new ways to attack. Maybe it's through the same types of vulnerabilities and similar exploits, but they're evolving. And the ability to build an assurance program that tries to keep pace with that is difficult. So our chief strategy officer, Robert, he's looking at this every single day. He talked about it at the show. I think you can probably expect a couple different things. Potentially the window in which testing is done right now, it's a 90-day window for all testing for a HITRUST certification. That window may change. It may expand. There may be other elements or other factors, not for every single control, but the controls that probably have a greater frequency rate. If it's an annual control or, a monthly or quarterly control, you may have a little breathing room in getting that done. So there's this idea of we can't have this be a point in time, but right now it's everything for the sake of argument is somewhat point in time. So how do we capture what's been going on overall, capture that in a point in time, but continue to assess that moving forward? So the idea of get HITRUST certified, and as you move, you can start testing controls as they come up during the frequency period and supply that to the external assessor, whomever, maybe even HITRUST. Again, we're figuring this out right now. It relieves the burden of trying to cram everything in to a 90-day window, but at the same time, it creates such clearer visibility into the scalability and the maturity of these controls, because you're able to look at them over time. And that's the direction we're trying to move in, is giving organizations things that I don't want to say are more predictable, but more reliable and more relevant in time so that they can make risk-based decisions.
Yeah, I love it. And well stated. And I want to, so many directions to go here. I want to, so let me ask you this. So people listening and watching this, what does that mean to them? So let's speak first to existing HITRUST entities, organizations that are working on or have a level of assurance with one of the three levels. How should they prepare for this transition, and how can it help them with their business?
So if there's anybody out there that has ever heard me speak in the past, you've probably heard me say that you need to build not necessarily a program of compliance, but a program built on something like HITRUST. You can't try to take all of the work, and let's take the R2, the one assessment that everybody knows us for. It's also the hardest, and I call it a significant emotional event. It is not an easy undertaking, and a lot of people try to cram all of that work into a very, very short period of time. We force them to do it within 90 days. Some of them are just getting prepared at 120 days out, and it is so stressful. It creates such a burden on the organization because everybody is sprinting to the finish. So what I have told people over the years is the day you get certified, you get 1 day break. And then day 2, you should already be thinking and building the processes to prepare for the next certification. So instead of generating all of these artifacts within a 90-day period, if you're generating them throughout the full year as they come up, right? So again, think about controls, the frequency in which these controls are supposed to be operating. You do that annual disaster recovery exercise. Well, now you can package that and put it aside and say, here's the DR plan and the DR exercise for my HITRUST certification that's 9 months away. Or if you have to, look at audit logs for access control to make sure that, people haven't had any permission creep or what have you, you're doing that on a quarterly basis. So if you're doing that on day 2 after your certification, that first quarter, you take that, you package that up, you put it away. The next quarter, you take that, you package up. Instead of trying to look back when it's time to get certified, you've already done that work. So I think that's really at the crux of current HITRUST certified organizations, is start to build those business processes now in preparation for the inevitable, because this is the direction that we're moving in. And I would argue that a lot of other organizations and frameworks and governing bodies, if you will, government agencies for that matter, are going to be moving in this direction. So if it's not for HITRUST, it's going to be for somebody. And this is something that we should have been doing all along. So let's just get started now.
Yeah, excellent points. And we'll touch on cyber insurance, I'm sure, at some point here as well. They're going to be looking for this same type of thing. So let's switch it to folks who haven't embarked on their HITRUST journey yet. And I don't know if that starts at an E1 or maybe in the middle at the I1. How does this idea or mindset of continuous assurance help shape how they start their journey, perhaps?
I think it's promising. because the first time someone goes through a certification, it's gonna be new. HITRUST is unlike other things that you've probably been through, and if you haven't been through anything, then maybe it won't feel as unnatural. But if you've been through other assessment types, HITRUST isn't like that. It's way more prescriptive. It tells you exactly what to do, not necessarily the technologies to implement, but the configurations of the controls within those technologies. So you have this idea of prescriptiveness, and if you are able to set that from the get-go, like let's say you're a startup and you don't really have a really mature security program, the fact that you're going to adopt HITRUST and it's moving to this continuous assurance model is actually a really promising thing. It's a forcing function for you to build good cyber hygiene and be able to maintain that over time, because what we don't want, and unfortunately what we see in many industries with many assurance mechanisms, is it becomes a check the box exercise. Let's just get through it because I need it for a contract. Well, that's all well and good until the bad day happens when some kind of incident happens. Whereas if we have this element of continuous assurance, like I said, you're building those good habits, that good hygiene to continuously evolve your program to protect against the latest threats that are happening. So I think it's a real positive thing for brand new organizations to the HITRUST world.
And I'll use this as a kind of the transition or shifting point, because I think a lot of drivers for new entities coming into the HITRUST fold is often through another entity having reliable partnership with another entity, so they become a third party to the main party. And so HITRUST for years has invested heavily in third-party risk management and finding new ways to capture the information, present the information, share the information. And one of the things that was announced was the HITRUST TPRM and ServiceNow. A huge deal, right? To be able to bring that into a platform that a lot of organizations use to help kind of wrangle some of this stuff together. So I don't know, can you touch on some of the highlights there?
For sure. So this is actually a great example of how HITRUST listens to the market and is trying to develop solutions based on that feedback. So as you mentioned, Sean, there's a lot of organizations out there that utilize or rely on HITRUST certification to build that trust between themselves and their vendors or their supply chain, entities, whomever it may be. And what we have found is that those TPRM managers, they will collect HITRUST, but in some cases they have to collect other things because that's all the vendor has, and they need something now to ascertain the risk because there's a business case behind the reason why they're having that conversation, right? But when you start to look at how do I compare the results of these different assessment types, it becomes really, really hard, and they've gravitated towards GRC platforms like ServiceNow, like OneTrust, like Archer, and many others. But there wasn't a really good way to get the data out of a static PDF, right? So whether you have a SOC 2, some kind of NIST report, a HITRUST report, up until recently, there was only a PDF. And in some cases, it was hundreds of pages long. So it was super hard, really inefficient, and just frankly,
hard to make it actionable. Yeah.
It's not actionable whatsoever. So HITRUST, I think 2 years ago, came out with this, I call it a product, but this capability, if you will, called the results distribution system. And it's a way of getting the assessment results from a HITRUST certification in a structured data format so it can be ingested into a GRC platform or what have you. It could be some kind of homegrown platform. So you get that structured result. So when you're comparing one vendor to the next, or you're looking at your vendor pool overall and you're really concerned because there was an incident recently around MFA. Well, how many of my vendors have MFA enabled? And oh, by the way, is it enabled across the board or just for certain systems? You'd have to dig through each one of these individual PDFs and not only try to find where MFA is covered, if it is, but then you'd have to try to decipher the auditor's comments on the maturity of it. Is it fully implemented? Is it deployed? So on and so forth. Whereas now with RDS, the results distribution system, you can ingest all of that information straight from the HITRUST assessment into whatever tool you have. And we're excited that we announced a partnership with ServiceNow. They will be the first platform provider, if you will, GRC provider that has a TPRM module we're building an app within their app store that you can download for free that will, integrate, if you will, I'm using these terms loosely, with ServiceNow, between ServiceNow and HITRUST, so you can seamlessly bring all of that assessment information into your tool, and then you can decide how you want to analyze, manipulate, or interpret that data behind the scenes because it's structured. It's not some random PDF. It is actual data coming in directly through APIs. So we're really, really excited about this integration. And as I mentioned, we're not stopping with ServiceNow. The goal is to continue to work with the other GRC providers and TPRM providers. So if there is someone you want us to work with, maybe Sean, we can throw my email address out there at the end. Feel free to reach out to me. We're listening.
Do you know?
Okay, so Ryan.Patrick@HITRUSTalliance.net.
There you go. And we'll include links to connect with you as well. One quick point, because folks who might be looking at, I worked just mainly in the third-party context. What's my posture? It's usually a spreadsheet where somebody makes a statement. What you're describing is actual requirements, policies leading to requirements, leading to controls that are then assessed independently and certified by HITRUST. So you have some proof and some reliability with that information. It's not just some salesperson trying to get the deal done. So a lot of great information in there, and the integration is huge as well. I want to shift to, where do I go with this? So the AI was certainly a topic, and I think it was in most everything. But I had a conversation with folks from Bold Health and StackAware, and the conversation was rooted in the assessment of AI. So helping them identify the best ways to produce an app that's AI enabled that would maintain security and privacy and lead them to whatever regulations may come, right, with respect to security and privacy. And it was a fantastic conversation. In short, the app essentially gives their customers a way to find the best provider for the specialized health service that person is looking for, based on information that the user, the patient provides. It'll provide feedback and actually list out providers driven by AI. And the cool thing is that they took this by design. They brought in HITRUST, they brought in an assessor, they took the hard stuff first and said, this is what we want to build. And it was great feedback. So I'm going to encourage everybody to listen. I'm not going to recap the whole thing here. But they're very excited about another new announcement. So that was kind of a year-long project from HITRUST that they embraced early on. Their product is released with that, I believe. But they're excited about the next step, which is an actual stamp of approval from HITRUST. So talk to me about the if it's called assurance or certification, but the AI piece that actually says we did what we needed to, not just we planned on doing what we needed to.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, last year at Collaborate, we announced that we were going to come out, hopefully, with the first AI security certification. So think about security controls around the actual models, around the data, around the system itself. Nobody's come out with that. Everybody's familiar with the AI, or NIST AI RMF, and you have several iterations of ISO. The one probably most prominent now is 42001. 42001 is very, very broad. It talks about all aspects of responsible AI. Security is just one of those elements. So nobody's really cracked the nut. So we are excited to announce that in December of this year, so just a few weeks away, we are going to be releasing the first AI security certification. So very similar to our standard security certification, there is a bar to be met, but it's around the actual security of the AI technology, not kind of at a high level. Right now, all that stuff that I mentioned is around risk management. So it gets a lot deeper, a lot faster, and tells organizations, primarily AI deployers and implementers, what types of controls they should have in place. So we released a request for comment just before Collaborate, got tons of comments at Collaborate, and we've received a bunch since then. So we're taking all that feedback and tweaking things as necessary. But that's really what we're trying to get out before the end of the year is kind of the question or the answers to the questions that people have been asking. Well, how do I secure AI technologies? Well, we're gonna give that to you. So it's not going to be a really large assessment, not like the R2 where there's 300 plus controls on the average for an R2. Right now, it's hovering around 50 controls, so it's a manageable size assessment, but it's tackling some of the most important elements from a security perspective around those controls themselves. So the only other thing I would offer is we at HITRUST don't believe that you can quote unquote have secure AI unless the underlying infrastructure that the AI is sitting on is also certified. So in our world, you will actually get a security certification over or through the lens of the infrastructure that it's sitting on, as well as the AI technology, making it a much more complete picture for, business partners, vendors, whomever, customers, whoever's going to use this technology. It gives them a much healthier trust that the technology is secured appropriately.
Yep, I love it. And I had a chat with Jeremy Hubal about this as well. So I encourage everybody to listen to that and certainly the conversation with Embold Health, because what really struck me and they really pointed to it during the conversation is the work that you did at HITRUST gave them kind of the oomph to really drive a well-designed and our product requirements design architecture all the way through to test and attestation of what they built.
That's great.
Really helped them through. Yeah.
That's great to hear, because too frequently you hear that security is an afterthought.
Right.
And to hear that people are taking the work that HITRUST is doing and using that in the design phase of a technology is really where we want to get to across the board. Take AI out of the question for a second. That's really what we need to be doing, is building security in at the foundation as opposed to trying to play catch up on the back end.
Yep. Yeah, it was super cool. So great story. I want to touch on cyber insurance, another big topic, a number of conversations and presentations throughout the week. I know it got a lot of people's attention. I've had a few conversations. Those are being produced, so stay tuned for those. Give us the 1-2 punch on that. I mean, the bottom line is anybody listening who's tried to acquire cyber insurance has probably found it's harder than ever, if even possible, right? And even if you do get the look and the nod, you're probably not going to be too happy with what the numbers are and the letters are in the in the policy. So talk to me about what you've done with HITRUST and some of your partners to actually leverage the work that most companies are probably already doing, right? Bringing HITRUST in to validate that, and then the results are what?
Yeah, so this one is something I'm super passionate about. I think the cyber insurance space leaves a lot to be desired, and I'm comfortable saying that, knowing that I partner with cyber insurance carriers, underwriters, and brokers, because they're saying the same things. It's not the typical insurance space. Cyber's much different, and they're still trying to figure it out to a certain extent. But what we've done is at HITRUST, we've educated the carriers, the underwriters, the brokers on not only the framework and the depth and breadth of the controls, but the process and the methodologies and the assurance program that we've built on top of that, and the fact that our assessments are actually based on threat intelligence. And if we can get into that if you'd like, they've realized that the quality assurance built on all of those things is above and beyond anything else that's in the market today. And it gave them a sense of comfort to understand or to realize that HITRUST certified organizations present lower risk than peer organizations who are not HITRUST certified. So they've built and absolutely. And what they've done is they've built a product based on HITRUST certification. So if you are HITRUST certified, you can go to your current broker. Any broker can take advantage of this product and present your HITRUST results. Right now it's for the R2, but coming next year, the E1 and the I1 will have some capability there as well. But you present that from the get-go, you get a 25% credit on your policy. Yeah, that's a huge victory, right? And what we have found, and I don't have all the details because they don't and shouldn't share these details with us, but generally speaking, they're finding that either premiums are lower, coverage limits are higher, or both in some cases, just because the proof is in the pudding. HITRUST forces you to get better. Other mechanisms out there, I won't name any specifically, don't actually force you to get better. It's a report on where you stand today, or it's an opinion on where you stand today. Whereas HITRUST, you can't get certified unless you get better. So the cyber insurance industry has responded to this, and the facility is backed by Lloyd's of London, and it's growing with each day. I think this is going to be a huge benefit to any and all organizations that want to pursue HITRUST. And oh, by the way, another thing that's near and dear to my heart, you get to do what HITRUST has been saying for years: assess once, report many. So use your assessment results more than one occasion. There's no world where it makes sense for you to do a HITRUST certification, a cyber insurance application, something for, say the federal government or CMMC or what have you, when a lot of those controls that everybody's looking for are arguably the same. So why not reuse the work? It saves time, it saves money, it saves stress. Audits are not fun. So it's a pretty exciting time, and I think we'll see that product gain some pretty serious traction in 2025.
Yep. And I've heard nothing but excitement surrounding this whole thing. And I know it's something that HITRUST has been working on for a while, and it's great to see it culminate and come together and be available. Ryan, comment on your shirt. Maybe you can show your shirt. I mean, one of the highlights from the event was all the superhero shirts you wore.
Yeah.
So I wanted to highlight that. But is there anything else from that week that you want to touch on before we wrap up here?
Yeah, so shirts, big hit. Got a few more coming up, and then I'm gonna have to find a new shtick. Trying to insert some personality into boring cybersecurity conferences. But to me, we hit on a lot of the highlights. The one thing that I would offer to the audience is, right now, depending on who you see, arguably 53% of organizations in any industry has suffered an incident and or breach in the last year. So you're statistically more likely than not to suffer a breach. Think about it from a third-party perspective. Of that 53%, over 70% of those are through some kind of third party. So these are pretty horrifying numbers. And I've seen numbers that are even higher than those. I offer all that because earlier this year, HITRUST released its first ever, we called it Trust Report, in April, and it highlighted some statistics, and among other things. And we're going to continue to write this year over year. But one of the things that jumped out at me is that in 2022 and 2023, and this is inclusive of all three assessment options you have for HITRUST, only 0.64%, less than 1% of HITRUST certified environments suffered a breach in that 2-year period. You compare that to the 53%, those numbers are pretty darn compelling on the fact that HITRUST actually works. So that's one thing that I try to talk about anytime anybody's willing to listen to me and let me speak, is the proof is in the numbers. The data doesn't lie. HITRUST gets you better. It helps reduce risk. And is it perfect? No, nothing's perfect, but it reduces that risk pretty darn dramatically. And there's a number of reasons for that, but I want to highlight that for folks because I think it's lesser known statistic in the risk management space, the cybersecurity space, that people need to start paying attention to. And I can tell you, because I asked my compliance officer this, that we're actually trending downward in 2024. So the breach rate in 2024 is actually less than what I just said to you. So we'll see how it ends up. I think the trust report coming out in 2025 will be a good one to read, but the proof is in the pudding. HITRUST works, and I really want to highlight that, and I'll probably continue to talk about it anytime you let me talk, Sean. And it's because we're committed to evolution. We're actually making our assessments based on threat intelligence as opposed to just making it up in a vacuum, thinking those are the right controls. So I guess I'd leave the audience with that.
Yep. Provability breeds trust, and transparency breeds trust. And I know it sometimes, nothing is 100% or nor zero, right? And so to have a number like that is pretty darn impressive. And I'm glad the team did the research and is able to present that number, because that's huge. That's huge, as you note.
Yeah, I would offer that when I heard that number, I didn't believe it. Like, I was like, you need to go do that math again, because there's no way. But that's the way it is. Call me a paranoid security person. So
math is math. Math is math. Well, listen, Ryan, it was fantastic seeing you at the event. I was grateful to be part of it, grateful to have so many good conversations. Hopefully folks check some of those out as well. And I know some of the recordings from the sessions are available for those who attended, collaborate. And so I'd encourage everybody to catch all of those if you missed some of them, or re-listen to them. I'm sure you'll find new nuggets in there. Always great to see you, my friend, and fantastic conversation. Great recap. And hopefully we'll see everybody collaborate 2025 with an E1, an I1, or an R2 underway.
That's right. Thanks so much, Sean.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for listening to this On Location with Sean and Marco. Marco's not here. I don't know where he's been, but eventually Marco will join sorry if I can only speak. We'll join the conversations with HITRUST and all the good things they're doing. So thanks for listening, watching, and be sure to share with your friends and family, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, Ryan.
HITRUST continues to champion programs that safeguard sensitive information and manage information risk for global organizations across industries and throughout the third-party supply chain, collaborating with public and private sector experts in privacy, information security, and risk management to identify emerging threats and help organizations ensure they take the most effective steps to avoid them. Learn more at HITRUSTalliance.net. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Sean and Marco's On Location event coverage conversations. Please take a moment to give the show a good rating and leave a comment. Remember to share this podcast with your friends, family, and colleagues. Come back for more conversations and follow Sean Martin and Marco Ciappelli as they continue their journey toward redefining cybersecurity and society.